So now it's time to start a discussion about lazy initialization. But first I'm gonna copy this singleton inside our classes file. And if you don't have this file because you created a new project again, just type the code that I'm gonna type in a second. So I'm gonna delete this. Now, what is lazy initialization? Lazy initialization is used when creating an instance, when creating an object is expensive. And expensive in the programming context means that it will take some time, it will use some memory, and in that case it's recommended to use lazy initialization. And to illustrate the lazy initialization, I'm going to use our user class. So I'm going to copy our user class inside our main file, not because I can't create here an object by having the file here, but because I want to put the code here to make clear what I'm doing. So I'm gonna delete the code from here. And if you don't have the file, just create a new class called user, define the properties first name, last name, and age. I'm gonna delete this because you don't need this. And inside our user class, I'm gonna put an initializer block, which is gonna be called every time you create a new object. And here we're gonna put a print line statement, which is gonna say user. We're gonna call first name property, so the value that is passed to first name property was created. So let's create a new object here. Let's call it user1 equals user. Now let's pass some values to the properties of the constructor. Let's say Alex. Now if you run this code, we get in the output user and the value for the first name property, Alex, was created. If I press Ctrl D and I change this to user2, and let's change this to a generic name, user, and for the last name let's pass just the last name text, and let's keep that age. So if I run this code now, because now on the line 3 you create a new object, the initializer block is going to be called again because we create a new object. It says user was created. Now to initialize our user2 with the lazy initializer, we just delete this. And to illustrate how the initializer block works, we delete this and we put after user2 by, so we put the keyword by and we type lazy. And as I'm typing, you see that I have that block lazy. Press enter and put the curly braces, and inside the curly braces we create our object. So user, and here we pass the values to the properties. So let's put user1 let's pass last name, and for the age let's put 0. Now previously when the user was initialized in the old way, we saw in the output user was created, so the initializer block was called when you created the second object. But now if I run this code, look what happens. We get only our first object. We get the initializer block only called for our first object, and for our second object initialized using the lazy initialization, we don't have the initializer block because the object is not initialized. The object is only going to be initialized when you use that object in your code. So if you use that object somewhere in your code, the object then is going to be initialized and is going to be used. So if I type here a println which says user dot first name user2, now if I run this, Now because I am using the user2 object, now the user2 object instance is gonna be created, and then I'm gonna see user2.firstName. So now we see user1 was created, so the initializer block was called, because when we called the println user2.firstName, then in that at that moment it created the instance and then it outputted user1. So this is why now we see here user1 was created, and previously we didn't, because now we're using the user2 object in our code. So unless you are not using the instance, the object that you have created using the lazy initializer, it is not going to be initialized. So this is initialization by lazy. So see you in the next video.